This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Hey, this is Michael Rosenbaum.
Hey guys, Tom Welling. Look, we've both played heroes.
And we both played villains. But in the real life, there are no reshoots, no stuntmen, or sequels.
We all make mistakes. We're all human.
Making one bad decision can not only land you in jail, but could also put yourself and other people around you in serious risk.
Be smart, make a plan, catch a ride, stay put.
Don't let a high moment turn into a lifetime of regret. This holiday season, be your own hero. If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI.
Paid for by NHTSA.
Getting more as a MyLowe's Pro Rewards member is easier than ever with the Lowe's app. Download it today and earn 500 points the first time you log in. Plus, your digital wallet helps you scan, save, earn, and access what you need to manage it all in one place. Download the Lowe's app and take advantage of your Pro benefits today. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid 12/1/25 through 1/7/26. Offer valid for first login per organization only. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Additional restrictions apply. Visit Lowe's.com/terms for more details. Subject to change.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on this episode, we present to you our final mailbag of 2025. We have a lot of fun doing these. I have to say that the questions get better for our listeners month over month. It's getting tougher to filter out which questions we're going to bring on air and which ones we're going to leave out. So shout out to our listeners in Discord as well as on our social media channels for giving us great questions about all things Orioles year in and year out. And I'm pretty confident that we're heading for a strong end to 2025 mailbags as we look at what some younger players at the major league level could have in store for 2026, what moves the Orioles might make this offseason, as well as some general questions about player development and the minors that we're going to be watching closely as we head into next season. I'm just going to jump right in here with this question from Ben Durst. What do you think we have this year with Dylan Beavers? Was a small sample size in the majors from last year for real? And I'll start with Nick on this one.
I think it was a pretty solid taste of what to expect. I think you look at the breakdown of what he was successful against. Most of that success did come against fastballs. I think he hit 0.45 against breaking balls and 2.08 against off-speed pitches. But despite those struggles, what I really liked is that his approach looked like it just remained consistent from what we saw in AAA. Like, he didn't panic in the big leagues. He had a 20% chase rate in AAA, and that went down to 18% in the big leagues. Still walked 19% of the time when he was in the majors. It's like, even if he doesn't see as much time against lefties, so much of what I think made him a successful hitter in AAA, we saw that in his short big league stint. He didn't seem overpowered by the moment, really at any point. So, yeah, I think you have to feel pretty good going into 2026 about what he could potentially contribute this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think his game just totally clicked in 2025 overall. We saw it all year long in AAA. We saw it in spring training. I thought, man, they're playing him a lot. They seem really confident in him. And there was a very good reason why, because his game just clicked on all cylinders, and you saw it all the way through the year. It was a great sign that it can continue from there. And yeah, I don't know if he's going to walk 19% of the time in the major leagues full time. Maybe between 13 and 15%, though. I think he's going to be a guy that walks and is well above average in that department. I don't think he's going to strike out 26% of the time either. I think it will probably be in the low 20s. And he had a 173 ISO in his 137 plate appearances that's pretty good, especially for your first taste. Had a 211 ISO in AAA last year and over 400 plate appearances. I think he's basically Kyle Tucker light. Vivek, shout out, started that nickname in the Discord, and I think it works at this point. I think he's kind of developed into that where he can steal bases. He didn't do a ton at the major league level, but he's stolen 20, 30 bases a year since 2023 in the minors. And his defense, it's been iffy, but I do think it's much improved. And there's no reason why I can't continue to improve. He's a really good athlete. I think he can be perfectly fine in left or right field at the major league level as time goes on. And yeah, worst case, I think he's like strong side platoon you go in expecting in 2026 with Tyler O'Neill maybe in right field, unless things shuffle around a little bit more, or if he's using a trade potentially. I hope not, because I do think he could be a really solid core member of the Orioles team moving forward.
Yeah, we've talked before about what we think is a realistic expectation, a realistic ceiling for Beavers. And I think what we've always come back to is someone who's just solid year in and year out. Maybe never looked at as the best right fielder in baseball, but going to hit, 260 to 270 in a good year, put up around 20 homers, steal 20 bases, play at least a passable defense. I looked up the projections for him going into 2026, and I saw this one from Steamer, which I thought was interesting because to me it represents maybe the 50th percentile outcome of what you could get from him this year if he's a platoon player. So in 79 games, Steamer has him hitting 243, 339 on base, 398 slugging, 23% strikeout rate goes to 12% walk rate, 9 homers and a 110 WRC plus. There's something I could quibble with there. The slugging percentage, I think, could be a little bit higher. But in general, I feel like that's a reasonable base. Maybe not the floor, but if you want to look at, okay, if the Orioles are going to use Beavers as a part-time player next year, what would success in year one look like in that role? That's not a bad place to start, but I think he's capable of doing a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think actually FGDC on Fangraphs right above Steamer has like the same exact rate predictions, but over 427 plate appearances instead of 315. And that seems like more in line with what I'm thinking, a 1.6 WAR, 12 homers, 11 steals. So, yeah, I think 1.5 to 2 wins is, if he continues to progress and play well, I think is a really good outcome for 2026.
I saw some art. I think he's like back home working with his college coach again, doing some camps. And I saw a quote from his coach talking about a lot of the adjustments he's made are like things like you're not going to see just watching him at the game. It's like different things like the hand setup and placement on the bat and everything on top of the bigger stuff, obviously. But a lot of small adjustments like that, Beavers, I think, attributed to a lot of his success being able to transition to the big leagues this year. And I love his coach's description of the swing was controlled violence. And I don't think I'd seen that description before for his swing. I feel like the home run swings specifically, that's a pretty good descriptor.
Yeah. And I saw a replay of his walk-off homer the other day, and it was awesome. I really do think that Beavers is just coming into his own at the perfect time. All right. Next question is from RCTG02. Star Wars droid for sure. With the success other teams have had converting relievers to starters, should the Orioles be quicker to convert some of their starting pitching prospects with reliever risk into full-time relievers to allow them to move through the minors more quickly, with the idea that they could potentially convert them back into starters later in their career if necessary?
I don't think so. Like, generally speaking, I think there are a couple of individual cases where I would say absolutely. Like, if it was up to me, and this is why I'm not in player development, I don't make these decisions in real life, just out of the park. But like, I'm putting Arcine in the bullpen tomorrow. Like, Zach Fruit would have went into the bullpen last March Chase also goes into the bullpen tomorrow. But like generally speaking, I'd say no, just because like the number of starters you need in a system is unbelievably deep. And I think this organization, we've talked about it a lot over the last couple of months. I think they've done a fantastic job. Again, knowing that these guys haven't reached the majors yet, they haven't proven anything yet. But I think you're talking about their potential and what we see in their future. Hopefully, I think they've done a fantastic job of like identifying the relief only arms and trades and in the draft, like Anthony Nunez, Tyson Neighbors, Micah Ashman, Tanner Smith opened some eyes in the AFL. Like some others as well. It's stuff's up. Teddy Sharkey was supposed to be in this mix if it wasn't for 2 major injuries he's had so far. But like I keep leaning into that. Like use a pick or two in each draft class on relief only, like senior signs. I wrote a lot about those guys last year, and I'm seeing a lot more conversation about some of them now going into 2026 is like, keep an eye on this guy who could rise quickly through so-and-so system. And it's these senior sign arms that you can get for a couple $1,000 in the draft who shouldn't need much time in the minor leagues. They have good stuff. They just don't have that starter ceiling. Grab 1 or 2 of those guys every year. So I think keep leaning into that and seeing, hopefully we start to see the fruits of that come to fruition here and over the next couple of months and into 2027. But yeah, I think I get the idea and I want to say yes, but I'm going to say no.
I think it's got to be on a case-by-case basis. I agree with everything that Nick just said. You want to keep guys starters for as long as you can because of how much starting pitching depth you need. And there are ways to target pure relief prospects in the mid to lower rounds of the draft or in trades that may fly a little bit under the radar, but you're getting guys back that could present real value. The only other 2 things I would add on to that are that, one, it's hard to determine when you make that call of, okay, this guy's going to the bullpen. Because I think that if you went back to this time last year, we probably would have been talking about Luis De Leon as a bullpen arm, and he may still be a reliever. But after the season he has a starter, moving him to the bullpen just for him to get to AAA a little bit faster would have looked like a mistake. I just also don't know of a lot of organizations off the top of my head who have a track record of doing that, where they can put a guy in the bullpen for a while and then move him back to the rotation as needed. The White Sox are one example of an organization I can think of that's done that a few times over the years. Chris Sale was one, Carlos Rodon, Garrett Crochet. So that's probably the blueprint for it, of get a guy in the major leagues faster, and then after a year or so in the big leagues, move him to the rotation. But that's kind of the outlier. I feel like at a certain point, if a guy's been in the bullpen for a number of years, that's probably where he's going to stick. So I just don't know that moving someone back into the rotation after a while is necessarily going to work in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I do appreciate the thought behind the question, because it's definitely like trying to look at things in a different way than just conventional thinking. I do think that maybe just like in the Orioles days of old, especially if the Orioles go out like we expect, and by the time this is released, maybe they have already done one of these, sign a free agent, big free agent to a long-term deal, trade for another starting pitcher. And if our rotation is Bradish, Rogers, 2 new acquisitions, and Dean Kramer with Brandon Young, Cade Povich sitting in AAA, maybe the move is not to turn them into relievers while they're in the minors, but hey, Trey Gibson, why don't you come work 2 or 3 innings at a time up in the major leagues, just because we think you're deserving and good enough to help us at the major league level. We don't have room for you in the rotation right now, but come be a reliever for us, and then go into spring training 2026 and compete for the rotation spot or something like that, because there's a lot of depth between Nestor Herman, Luis De Leon, Cameron Weston. Like, some of these guys might have to break into the majors as relievers, and then eventually they'll be there to have the option to stretch out again sooner, or maybe it takes a couple years. Who knows?
Yeah, I was trying to go back and try to remember who else had done this, if anyone else had done this in the past. And I don't know under the Mike Elias era what, but I knew Nick Vespi used to be a starter. And I'm like, when did they transition him? Say what you will about his major league career, yada, yada, I know. And where he's at now, he's pitching in Mexico now. But he reached the big leagues. And this guy this is all pre-Mike Elias. He spent 5 years and was still an A-ball in the Orioles system. But in 2018, they converted him to a reliever, a closer basically, and he was fantastic in Delmarva. Went back to Delmarva in 2019, started again, and was pretty solid. And then 2020, during the shutdown, I think they just led into the relief role, and there he took off and eventually reached the major leagues. So, but yeah, I don't know of anybody else since then that's like they've bounced around like that. So, let's see. We got two we're gonna put together here from the Bird is the Word and Justin Daly. Oh boy, Enrique Bradfield Jr. Is Enrique Bradfield Jr. going to be quote good? Or can you see him as a future everyday option in center field? On top of Justin's question, which is, can you sell me on EBJ not just being Billy Hamilton? Who wants to pick up the EBJ discussions?
All right. So I guess I'll give it a shot. Do I think EBJ is going to be good? Yes. Do I think I could see him as a future everyday option in center field? Absolutely. Do I think that's a guarantee? No, of course not. I think that his skill set right now, he could be a major league fourth outfielder today for as long as you want until his skills erode. And I think the potential, is there for him to be a super solid 9-hole hitter that flips the lineup over, gets on base. If he can just hit enough to use his patience and batting eye to his advantage to get walks, get on base, bunt for base hits. He's going to steal 100 bases if he's playing every day. He's going to have incredible defense in center field that you can bare minimum use late in games or against your Sunday lineup. But yeah, I don't know. I think he's a super valuable player. I don't think he's going to have the highest OPS on any team he ever plays for. I don't think he's going to move the needle offensively ever, but I do think that there's a chance he could hit enough to be a super valuable everyday player. Absolutely. And Billy Hamilton, I mean, I get it. Steals and speed and defense. I think EBJ is better defensively than Billy Hamilton. I think speed-wise, they're comparable. I don't think Billy Hamilton had the chase rate that EBJ has. He's not going to chase. He might get to the point where he can't hit enough, impact the ball enough where the pitchers are going to throw enough balls for him to walk. But if they don't, I think he's got enough of a game to slap some singles and bunt for base hits to be a little bit better than Billy Hamilton, at least.
Yeah, I had to go back, and I'll take the second part of this first, the Billy Hamilton EBJ comps. I had to go back and kind of remind myself of who Billy Hamilton was as a prospect, because I remember the big stolen base totals he put up because it was something we had not seen in minor league baseball in decades, so it got a lot of attention at the time. But a couple of things jumped out at me that make him different than Bradfield. One is the defense. Billy Hamilton was converted shortstop, made a pretty quick transition to the outfield in pro ball, but the defense, at least that I remember, never was graded as well as Bradfield's is right now. And then the second part of this is that offensively, it's easy to see some similarities between the two. Not a lot of power, fair amount of contact, and whether or not they are going to successfully put the ball in play depends on whether they're going to hit a line drive or a ground ball that finds the hole. But Billy Hamilton, other than his 2012 season in the minors, which he split between high A and double A, his walk rates were typically in the single digits. He finished his major league career, or technically his major league career is not over. He's a free agent. He's never retired. But his major league career to date, and if it is indeed over, finished was a 7% walk rate for his career, which is fine if you're hitting 20 to 25 homers a season, but not that good when you're relying heavily on your speed to provide value. And Hamilton had a few nice years in the major leagues, but I'm fairly confident right now in saying that Enrique Bradfield's going to walk more than 7% of the time in his major league career, whatever the sample size looks like. As for how good he's going to be, I kind of go back to what John Mioli said on our show a couple of weeks ago, where if you're looking at what his career looks like, are there going to be a lot of years where I don't know the exact term that John used. It might have been like an empty 700 OPS or an empty 750 OPS. Could he have a lot of years like that? Yes. There's going to be a lot of years where he hits a lot of singles, draws a decent amount of walks, and he finishes with a 350 to 360 slugging percentage. That accounts for over half of his OPS. And those are his best seasons. But if he's playing a Gold Glove caliber center field, that's still a 3.5 to 4 win player. And most Orioles fans were fine with Cedric Mullins' 3.5 to 4 win seasons in center field. So if you've got enough power elsewhere in the lineup to offset that, I think he'll be fine. Again, that may be his ceiling. His floor probably is as a speed and defense-oriented fourth outfielder, but the ceiling is of an everyday major league center fielder.
Yeah, you guys, I'm so tired of having this conversation already. And he's only been in the system for 2 years. Like, it's just this offseason alone. I mean, or going back to last season when he was healthy being the key word there, and his time in the AFL, like, I think you've seen some improvements in some areas you want to see improvements in. So I'm excited to see how he comes out of the gates in 2026. And just at this point, I just want his bat to do the talking for him. I'm tired of talking about it. I just want the season to start, and we'll see what it looks like at the start of 2026. Start fresh. He had a good, healthy, solid AFL campaign. I think that was the biggest key, is that he was leading off for whatever team. I was trying to say the name of the team. I forget which team. Orioles
Seguros? I can't remember.
Is it Surprise?
Seguros, yeah.
Yeah. He was there, lead off center field every day, except 3 or 4 games, and healthy the entire time. His bat will do the talking when the season starts, and we'll see.
I had that dream again. My small business needs an office admin, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire an energy vampire. But also, they're a literal vampire. And suddenly my team is spending all their time sharpening wooden stakes and buying bulk silver and rehearsing ancient chants, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant takes insights from over 1 billion professionals to create a short list of the best fits for you. Get 50% off your first job post at linkedin.com/Pandora offer. Terms and conditions apply.
Sling lets you watch your favorite college football teams your way. Choose and customize your channel lineup to catch all the action on ESPN, ESPN2, ABC, plus conference networks for the SEC, ACC, and Big Ten. Watch at home or on the go. You can even pause and watch for free if your team's season is already down the tubes. No long-term contracts, no hassle. Just pure flexibility for college football fans. Sling lets you do that. Visit sling.com to learn more.
This is a real good story about Drew, a real United Airlines customer.
After almost 4 years of treatments, I was finally cancer-free. My mom's like, where do you want to go to celebrate? I'm like, let's go somewhere tropical. And then pilot hopped on the intercom and started talking about me, and I was like, what is going on here?
My wife beat cancer too, and I wanted to celebrate his special moment.
That's Bill, a real United pilot.
We brought him drinks and donuts. We all signed a card.
I was smiling ear to ear. Best flight ever for sure.
That's how good leads the way.
Getting more as a MyLowe's Pro Rewards member is easier than ever with the Lowe's app. Download it today and earn 500 points the first time you log in. Plus, your digital wallet helps you scan, save, earn, and access what you need to manage it all in one place. Download the Lowe's app and take advantage of your Pro benefits today. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid 12/1/25 through 1/7/26. Offer valid for first login per organization only. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Additional restrictions apply. Visit Lowe's.com/terms for more details. Subject to change.
Go over to another prospect-related question, and this comes from Bobby Jones. It focuses on the pitching side, though. Out of Trey Gibson, Levi Wells, and Nestor Herman, who debuts first, and is it out of the pen or a spot start? Nick, I will start with you.
My breakout winner. I'm going to go with him. I think it's going to be Levi Wells in a relief role. Like it was really encouraging, again, to reference our talk with John the other week. I think it was very encouraging to hear like Gibson's time in AAA. There was clear fatigue, and they knew exactly what was wrong with him, trying too hard and adjusting to the pro ball. He had struggles with that. So I think it was comforting to hear, okay, they knew exactly what went wrong when he got to AAA. Fix that this offseason, address that in spring training, get the fresh slate. You're ready to go, show your true potential in AAA this year. But I wouldn't be shocked if he's a guy that I know probably back during the season. I think, Bob, you threw out the bold prediction, Trey Gibson debuts early in the year. I love that. I want to see that, but I could also see then like he sticks in AAA, and he's one of those guys that we're like, why are we watching another Trey Gibson start in Norfolk? Get him to the big leagues. I think they hold him down there longer than we all want. I could see that happening. But Herman, I think, is a little bit further behind. Wells, I could see a situation where, you're looking at what he's doing in AAA, and you're looking at that stuff, which he clearly has some of the best raw stuff in the system in the minor leagues. And you say he could be a big asset if we can just harness. Maybe not everything is going swimmingly in AAA, but that stuff. We need a relief arm up here. We want to see if we want to keep him on this 40-man roster and keep him in the organization. Let's throw him up here for 1-2 inning stints for a week or two that we need him, and let's see what he can do. And that's where I think he gets his debut first.
Yeah, I think there are basically two options here, and Levi Wells out of the bullpen is certainly one of them. I'll take the other side. I'll say that there's some early rainouts with the April weather. Got some doubleheaders. Who are we going to have come up and start a game here or there? It's going to be Trey Gibson. So I think those are the two arguments. I could see, like, if, like you said, he's in AAA longer than we expect. They're waiting for the opportunity. There's, knock on wood, this would be amazing. No injuries. The starting rotation stays intact. It's the second half of the year. But Levi Wells is just too good for AAA at this point. Let's get him up here out of the bullpen. And like I said, just to have the most talented arms be on the major league roster. So I guess there are three options, but I'll go with Trey Gibson on this one.
The fourth, Albert Suarez. He gets the call up first.
That's right. You can't forget him. I'm going to go with Levi Wells here, but as a starter, what I sort of envision is the DL Hall path to the majors. It's his time. It lines up that he can start for you when you need a spot starter, and he's that guy. But then you bring him back up later in the year as a reliever, which I think could be a role that he's well suited to down the stretch. Looking at the other two pitchers, with Gibson, my sense is that they kind of see the Kyle Braddis development path for him, which is they believe he's going to be a starter. They want him starting games as much as possible, even if it means keeping him back in Norfolk longer, with the idea that if you promote him to the major leagues, you're going to hope that it's permanent. You're going to keep him up there until he has enough setbacks that he has to get sent down, which hopefully doesn't happen. Herman, I could see it going either way. His walks kind of took a step back last year, and if that carries over into next season, maybe there's a little bit more relief risk to him. But regardless, that's one where it could be on the bubble of, do you want him as a starter or do you want him as a reliever if you have to turn to him in 2025 or 2026, excuse me. But I think with Wells, it's very possible you see a DL Hall type of situation. Comes up as a starter, fills in, but the plan for him for at least the rest of the year is if they need help out of the bullpen in August and September, that's one of the first guys that we're looking at.
Yeah, that is certainly an option. I do think that Nestor Herman, just like our depth at AAA is going to be so good that whoever's on turn, if they need someone for a doubleheader or what have you, pretty much I think is capable of coming up and doing a spot start. And I think Herman is in that group. He did have a good interview on Steve Molesky's podcast that his goal for this offseason is to get stronger, which I would imagine means not only endurance and pitching 100 plus innings over the course of a full season, but also velocity a little bit. So maybe he'll tick up one or two over the course of the offseason if he comes in spring training, which, man, just thinking about all the new guys that are going to make their spring training debuts this coming up spring training. It's going to be fun. And Herman, I think, is going to be one of them. And if he starts coming out here chucking 95, 96 instead of 93, 94, then maybe the answer to this question could change a little bit. Next question. We have EJ, always a big time poster in the Discord for the Prospect channel. Looking at the Rule 5 eligible list for 26, which at the time of recording, Nick had just released on Substack, very good article. Who are the most likely prospects the org will move versus who are they certain to try to protect? Let's go to Nick.
God knows. It's a massive list. This article's done a lot of traction since this morning. Oh, we can read it off. At this point, just the notable names of new eligible names. This isn't even the full list, but it's Aaron Estrada, Enrique Bradfield, Thomas Sosa, Ellis Cuevas, Trey Gibson, Nestor Herman, Levi Wells, Zach Fruit, Luis De Leon, Michael Ferret, Jerron Watts-Brown, Blake Money, Braxton Bragg, Patrick Riley, Wellington Arcina, and Kiefer Lord. And again, there's a lot more behind those guys, but like that's a list. Some guys are going to flame out. Some guys are going to get hurt. That's the nature of the game, unfortunately. But I think we've got to see moves with these guys. They all cannot and will not stay in the organization. Who gets moved? I don't know. But if I'm picking like my priority, like as of December, my priority targets to try to protect, I think I'm like Bradfield, Gibson, Ferret, Luis De Leon, and I think Braxton Bragg. I'll throw him in there too. I think those would probably be like my priorities. And I can be swayed to add or subtract. Like there's this whole list. The pitcher side is just unreal. But those are the guys that initially kind of jump out to me.
Yeah, and that was a great article, Nick. As I thought about this question, what I did was I kind of took the players that were first-time eligible going into 2026 and broke them down into tiers where essentially the first group is if nothing changes. In other words, their prospect stock stays about the same. They have the years that we expect them to have in 2026. Who's going to be in the conversation of they absolutely have to protect this guy? And I came up with Trey Gibson, Luis De Leon, Aaron Estrada, Enrique Bradfield Jr., Levi Wells, Nestor Herman, and Michael Ferret. That's a big group right there. And then on the bubble, Wellington Arcina, we talked about this a lot on our last show, but if his command takes a big step forward and he's able to log a lot of good innings for you at Double-A, that's going to be an interesting case. Thomas Sosa arguably has the most upside of the position players in this group, but it's a matter of whether or not he's going to put it all together. Blake Money, again, that's another guy we talked about on our last episode, a pitcher that could take a big step forward and could put some innings at Triple-A, which would make him a very viable Rule 5 candidate. Zach Fruit, it's all about his health. Jerron Watts-Brown is Rule 5 eligible next year, and I have a feeling that if he repeats what he did last season, he's going to be in that conversation. And then Ellis Cuevas, I think you're safe there. That's the one guy I feel like right now looking at it, even if he has a good 2026, it's not going to come high enough in the minors so you have to worry about it. Kiefer Lord, that's a dark horse if a team feels like the stuff is good enough that he can be fast-tracked as a reliever. But given that he has not pitched much in the last 2 years, and he's probably going to be on a little bit of a short leash next year, I think you're probably going to be safe there. So what I would say is that for the guys who are going to move, really look at those first two tiers and expect that at least one combined between the two or one from each are going to get moved. We know that as the regular season plays on, these things have a way of sorting themselves out. Some guys are probably going to get added in season when they're promoted to the majors. Others are going to drop off because of injuries or because their development just stalls. But then kind of like we saw last year with Reed Trimble, which was a year that sort of came out of nowhere in this regard. Somebody that we're not even talking about right now could be in that mix and really complicate this. So if the Orioles are planning ahead, I'm sure that they're looking at this group of first-time eligible players as prospects they need to make decisions on, at least in the next 6 months.
Yeah, if there's a big trade soon this offseason or even at the trade deadline coming up, I would expect to see some names from this list go in the deal just to try to make the decision-making process a little bit easier because, my goodness, the slam dunk ads are, as you said, Estrada, Bradfield, Gibson, Herman, Wells, De Leon, and Ferret, and a lot of other guys that could easily – I mean, Braxton Bragg, if he's back by the end of the season and looking as good as he did in his breakout first half of 2025, someone's going to take him, and I don't want them to. So I'd say he's almost a lock as long as he looks healthy when he comes back. So, yeah, I think they might have to trade a guy or two that we don't want them to just to make room. I think you're pretty safe with Sosa and Cuevas. Position players don't really get selected as often, and especially tough to keep them on a roster all season long with the way you need pitchers. I think guys like Kiefer Lord, Blake Money, if they're left unprotected and they get picked, I think that's just the cost of doing business, just like with Carter Ballmer. Like, you hope they come back if that's the case, but if your system's that good that you have to leave one of those types of guys off, then you're doing pretty well. Man, we're going to have a lot of content to talk about 10, 11 months from now.
Well, Bob, and I'm glad you brought up Bragg, because I put him in that second tier of guys that I kind of see on the bubble. And another pitcher that I have in there, Pat Riley, who should be coming back from Tommy John surgery sometime in the 2026 season. He looked like he was poised for a breakout before he got hurt early in the 25 season. So if he comes back and looks good, that's another guy that's going to make the Orioles, or force the Orioles to make some tough decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And a guy like Jerron Watts-Brown, who has a great slider, pretty good fastball. I know he's starting now, but maybe that's a guy you fast track in a bullpen role and see what he can do. This is why I don't want to sign too many major league deals for relievers right now if I'm the Orioles, because you need to keep that shuttle open, because there's going to be a lot of guys. Like, the shuttle is going to be way more entertaining than it has been the last couple of years, as far as guys you can call up and send them back down with options just on a rotating basis to keep the bullpen fresh.
That Luis De Leon, Aaron Estrada package is going to hurt when that gets moved. I'm waiting for that. A trade like that, a Aaron Estrada, Luis De Leon trade for a major league starter, I think would make for a very interesting conversation on this show.
My heart hurts already.
But we'll move on to Brady Jones' question here. You got to talk about major league pitching. He says, I'm very bullish on Imai, the Japanese superstar pitcher, who should sign now to make this easier. But what makes Michael King more appealing than Imai or Ranger Suarez?
So from my vantage point, King is certainly not more appealing than Imai. And then I think Suarez, it's a bit of a toss-up, and there's pluses and minuses to both guys. But from where the Orioles are sitting now, I would have to think that they like Imai better. But the fact that they're reportedly in on King at this stage just is probably an acknowledgement of how complex the process is for Imai. Given that, it generally takes longer to sign players coming out of Japan. We know that a handful of teams in the game really have a corner on that market, and it's been harder for organizations like the Orioles that have not been in Japan for as long to break through. So there's a very real possibility, I think, that the Orioles go in on Imai, but that's definitely a situation where you have to have contingency plans, and Michael King is not a bad one. As for Suarez, what I come back to with the King-Suarez discussion is that both pitchers have track records of not making a lot of starts in the season. Suarez has been a starter for longer, but of those two guys, Michael King is the only one that's had a 30-start season, which was just in 2024. Suarez has not eaten a lot of innings over the course of his career. Now, he is a couple of years younger, and he has been a starter for longer, so maybe if you're looking at the durability aspect of this, those are points in his favor. But the Orioles might be looking at Michael King and seeing the strikeout rate that's about 5% higher over the course of his career than it is for Ranger Suarez, and believing if neither of these guys is going to give us 175 to 180 innings every year, and neither one of them is going to make 30 starts every year, let's go with the guy whose stuff we like a little bit better and who we can get on a shorter-term contract. And I'm not saying that I necessarily think that's right, because I could be persuaded that Suarez is the better option of those two. But I could see where if you're looking at the risk of both pitchers, you believe Michael King is a better option than Ranger Suarez.
Yeah, I'll make the case for why King. I don't think this is true. I am Tatsui in my number one on my want list, even above Framber Valdez. But the case for having Michael King ahead would be that you could potentially get him for probably not a 3-year deal, but you could probably get him for a 4-year deal at like 25-30 million a year. So if you're more want that shorter term, high AAV commitment, that's probably the way it's going to happen. And Michael King has a pretty good ceiling. You saw it in his first year transitioning to a starter in 2024, 173 innings, 2.95 ERA, incredible strikeout to walk rate. But he's got durability concerns. That is why you could get him at a 4-year deal potentially. Meanwhile, Ranger Suarez, guy just knows how to avoid hard contact. And yeah, he's barely cracking 90, which is why he's at the bottom of my list as far as free agent top market, like the 5, 6, 7-year deal contract you're looking at. He's at the bottom of that list. I'd still be happy to have him if that's who he ended up with, the Orioles, but I don't know. The velocity scares me because it's probably only going to continue to decline. And how effective can you be year 4, 5, 6 on that? But yeah, I want Amai. It seems like the finalists are the Cubs, Yankees, and maybe a couple other teams. Hopefully the Orioles are in that mix, but I would be very happy with Michael King as well.
The way I view it is with King, it's like, yeah, he's only got one year as a full-time starter in the big leagues, but it was very good. You guys routed off the numbers there, the 173 innings, 30% strikeout rate, good walk rate. But even pitching through those injuries last year, like he maintained his velo, the walk rate stayed in line, and I think he even had a slight uptick in like stuff plus numbers. And so like more movement, higher quality stuff a little bit with no lost velo, no major delivery changes. Like, so yeah, he did miss a lot of time due to injury. It was shoulder and then the knee when he was back from the shoulder. And then I think he injured the knee, which kept him out a little bit longer. But like, this isn't a guy who, he lost 2 miles per hour. He suffered the shoulder injury, lost 2 miles per hour. And now it's like, can he get that velo back? Can he get you 125 innings next year? I think if you bring him in, free agent deal, you get the medicals, insert Orioles medical joke here. But he passes that. I feel you got to feel confident about his health at this point, and then he takes your rotation to another level. I would be somewhat concerned that because he only had 70 something innings last year, like pairing that with Bradish, who could be limited at points this year, or at least monitored his workload, some others as well. Like I don't know. That does concern me a little bit, but stuff wise, I don't really see any reason why he can't be a 3+ WAR pitcher next season.
The clock's running out on December deal drops at Lowe's, but there's still time to wrap up something they'll love. Shop great gifts under $50, like the DeWalt Elite Series 100-piece bid set. Plus, if you order by 2 p.m., you can get same-day delivery by 8 p.m. Shop December deal drops while you can. Lowe's, we help, you save. Same-day delivery on eligible in-stock items, subject to availability. Fees vary. Details at lowes.com/same-day delivery.
Come to DSW for the shoes, stay for the fun. Because let's be honest, if shoe shopping isn't fun, are you even doing it right? So go ahead, try something new. Try something different. Good different. Try something that feels like you. You know, the real you. And then definitely brag about it later. Because at DSW, you've got unlimited freedom to play. With sneakers, boots, and everything in between for every style, mood, and occasion, you'll definitely find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. DSW, let us surprise you.
Is it just me, or has watching TV gotten way too complicated? There are a million different services and too many bills to keep track of. Thankfully, there's Philo, a better way to TV. For as low as $33 a month, I get the channels I love. MTV, BET, Food Network, you name it. Plus, everything that AMC Plus has to offer. And guess what? They've added access to HBO Max Basic with Ads Plan and Discovery Plus, so I can enjoy all the best TV with one subscription. There are no contracts, no surprise fees, just one low price. And their DVR is awesome, too. I can save everything I love for up to a year and skip the ads when I rewatch them. A total game changer. I signed up directly at philo.tv. That's philo.tv. And if you subscribe today, you can get $8 off your first month. Philo's the easiest decision I've ever made. Now the hard one. Deciding what to binge next.
Marriott Bonvoy is the official hotel partner of US Soccer. Join Marriott Bonvoy today to get closer to the game with exclusive perks, unforgettable experiences, and benefits that go beyond the pitch. Spring Hill Suites, part of Marriott Bonvoy, offers complimentary hot breakfast and spacious all-suite accommodations, perfect for the whole team, with room for up to 6 guests. Make your next getaway a win. Learn more at springhillsuites.marriott.com.
Let's go to a similar but a little bit different question from Daddy Batty, who asks, of the major possible starter signings I see floated, like King, Framber Valdez, Imai, etc., who do you think makes the biggest impact not in on-field success during their contract, but in making Baltimore a bigger free agent destination in the future? So an interesting question. Bob, I'll start with you on this one.
It's Tatsui Imai with a bullet to me. I mean, if he comes here, he's a character. He's a confident guy. He wants to take down the Dodgers. He wants to be the guy who breaks into the big Japanese market for a team that hasn't done so or doesn't have a current Japanese player. If he comes here, has a great season, and it's like, who's coming with me to take down the Dodgers? I just think he's also could be a fun character that guys could want to play with as well. Doesn't have to be Japanese guys. And so he's number one for me. Then I would say Framber, I feel like could go either way. You don't want to be a catcher probably coming to the Orioles if Framber is here. But I don't know. I think he's a big name, talented pitcher that people could like. I think a guy like Pete Alonso, who obviously they already signed, I think does more on that regard, just because he's a personality that's been winning home run derbies. He's more visible. He's a position player, which I think just helps in general. So maybe not listed here. Maybe if they do go the Kyle Tucker route or what have you, that could help as well. But yeah, underreported what that kind of thing could do for the team's chances in the future.
Yeah, I was thinking like the argument for Framber could be. I also think it's Imai, because that's like, I'm sure Sugano brought eyeballs, and you really saw like Orioles social media lean into like the Japanese market as well. I'm sure that did wonders on their end. That had an impact for sure, but at the same time, like that's nothing compared to what Imai would bring to the organization. And yeah, I know that this organization has done a lot to create a bigger presence into that market, and this would just blow the doors wide open. Last year was just it's creaked open. It's like my 3-year-old at 2 a.m. It's creaked, but like Imai just blows it wide open. But to make the argument for Framber, I wonder if like it's a 32-year-old arm. Maybe he's not in his prime, but like he's still near the top of the game in terms of like MLB starters. He's not coming off an injury. He's not looking for a prove it deal. And like the Orioles swoop in on some damaged goods in hopes of a bounce back. Like this is a guy who's a multi-time All-Star, World Series champion, who makes any rotation in baseball better. And if he were to choose the Orioles, maybe the character stuff and all that, maybe that there's a little wrinkle in all this. But if he were to choose the Orioles, granted, there's also the Houston connection as well here. But I do wonder if other guys see a guy like Framber come to Baltimore and he has success and things go well, do other top end starters say, oh, like, maybe, okay, he did it. Baltimore is a place that I can go to, and it's not because no one else is going to give me good money. I'm not going here just to prove myself. Like I'm coming here because I want to. They're opening the checkbooks. I'm going to get the money I want. I'm going to get the years that I want, and this team can be very successful. So, an argument for Framber, but I agree it's Imai.
Yeah, I definitely agree it's Imai. And, we've talked before about the impact that Samuel Basallo could have in the Orioles' presence in the Dominican Republic, because he was signed by this organization originally, developed. If he turns into a superstar, that puts the Orioles on a more global level. And Imai could do that in a way that Sugano and Koji Uehara couldn't. So there's that. But I do kind of agree with what you both brought up about Valdez, that if he comes here and is successful and he is performing well under a market rate contract, that is going to open up a lot of eyes around baseball. And pitchers could look at that and say, okay, Baltimore is a good destination. Yes, maybe it's the American League East. Maybe it is, a hitter-friendly ballpark, but they have the right resources there to help pitchers succeed, and they're willing to pay the price to get top of the rotation arms. So there could almost be, like, I think, a Like, what is more off-field value would be a my, but it's possible if you sign Framber Valdez and that pays off, that provides a lot of on-field value.
Hopefully one of these guys is part of this rotation, though. We'll move on to try to wrap things up here as we move on to two questions from Mac the Fan. He asked on Twitter, he said, first question is, how will MLB takeover of MILB data potentially impact the Orioles? If you're watching live, I think Eno just dropped this over The Athletic yesterday. If you're listening to a podcast and it's a week later, I don't know if we're going to get more information between then. So I guess kind of what are y'all's opinions about this information that has come out, and how do we think it's going to impact the Orioles?
I think it's unfortunate probably for the team. I'm sure the front office is probably not stoked about this, considering that since Mike Elias and company came over, they've been kind of leading the charge, or head of the pack at least, when it comes to this thing. So, giving teams that aren't investing in this part of player development, just the keys to the castle is probably not great for them. But for us, it is, hey, give me that information. We want the information. We're probably going to get the information, but at what cost? I'm not sure. I don't know. I want to see more information about it. Don't know if we'll get it anytime soon, but I'm leaning it's probably really dumb on baseball's part, but selfishly, hey, I'm not going to complain if I get more data.
Yeah, from reading Eno's piece, and there was a lot of good insight there, so I would encourage people that have not read it to this point to go check it out over at The Athletic, and it's kind of gives you the all-around view of what the implications of this are. And it seems like most of the concern is coming from organizations that have spent a lot on their player development technology, and some of that technology no longer being what MLB approves as it tries to standardize things. Now, I don't know if either of you have heard anything. I know that I have not heard how much the Orioles spend on these things, and whether there's a widespread concern within the organization that, this is going to affect the technology they already have in place. What I will say is that unless we are seeing publicly available data, for most fans, this is going to be a change that probably doesn't register at all. But I would be curious to see what we're hearing through back channels as the season goes on of, technology's gotten better, it's gotten worse, it's stayed the same. And I don't know that we'll ever get a direct answer to that question, but it is something that I think is going to kind of be beneath the surface this coming season. Again, not visible to most fans how it's affecting things unless there is publicly available data. But for teams that are spending a lot on technology that may see those resources clawed back a little bit, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of talk about it.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and it sounds like from what Eno was saying that this is very early on. Like this was just like a, hey, this might be happening, this is on the horizon, but it could be a couple of years, I think. But as this gets implemented, you're talking about standardizing the level of technology across the league, and I think MLB is going to come and like pay for all of this. So teams who don't even have some of the systems in place, MLB is going to put it in their minor league ballparks for them. Like my first thought was like, in what world is leveling the playing field to the lowest common denominator going to help baseball? And it's like, it doesn't seem fair to, again, this just knowing what we know, which is very little at this point, but it seems unfair to go to a team like the Rockies, who you're like, look at this machine. Like, don't be scared of this machine, guys. Like this is going to measure exit velocity. Can we spell exit velocity? Read my lips, say it after me, repeat after me. Like, compared to a team like the Orioles, who, like, if you're going to be, the Orioles are frequently mentioned among like the leaders in terms of player development. If you're an organization who has a competitive advantage in player development, you shouldn't be punished because some other billionaire owner wants to find another way to be cheap. But like, again, without knowing any particulars and just looking at this at a broad view, I think I could be okay with it for a couple of reasons. One, just it could help improve like the overall play in baseball for some organizations. Like, I mean, there are a lot of guys who like I will follow in college and they get drafted to certain teams and you're like, well, that's not going to go well for them. Like, how many guys, because they go to an organization that lacked these resources and weren't successful in this area, like flamed out? I don't know how many at all, but could that help raise the level of some talent across the league. Who knows? Second, I think the biggest thing for me is like, you can have all the data in the world sitting in front of you, but if you don't, do you have any idea what to do with it? And so like, I've had this exact conversation with a college pitching coach who started an analytics department from scratch at his program. And he's told me the biggest takeaway he had at the very beginning was, when trying to implement it, that the machines and printouts and charts mean absolutely nothing to those kids who couldn't read the charts or graphs. It was up to him to be able to read it and translate it for them and show them how this makes you better. So I still feel like you're still going to need smart minds. And if you can be an organization that hires the best and brightest minds who can work this to your advantage, like, you're still going to win, I feel like. So maybe that's an area with the Orioles, and it could force the Orioles to immediately start revamping how they do things, and maybe it could be a benefit. I don't know. But yeah, I think the biggest reason selfishly is, why would you not just integrate it all into Baseball Savant? And then we can be like, I'm going to watch the Frederick Keys tonight. Oh, JT Quinn's pitching, and I have a StatCast page up for a Frederick game. Like, I will take that.
Exactly. And it's going to probably just, not even just like us, but like the public sector at large, it's going to just equal better podcasts, better articles, and the Mike Petriellos and Eno Sarases of the world will have more like the smartest people in the field will have this information at their disposal. And I think that could help create some new advancements as well.
The only other thing that I would add to this, just to go back to the point that Nick was making about college baseball, when Major League Baseball effectively stepped in and reorganized the minors before the 2021 season, got rid of 40 plus teams, got rid of the short season levels outside the complex leagues. One of the arguments from MLB at that time was that players at major Division I programs had better facilities in college than they did in pro ball. So I would hope that any step that they're going to take here is consistent with that, at least make the data and the technology that they're putting in place as good, if not better, than what is at these Division I schools, which we know is pretty good. Just be consistent with what you've talked about for the last several years. And Nick is absolutely right. For some of these organizations, if you don't have the right people relaying that information, it's not going to make a difference at all.
I feel like after COVID, with the contraction of the minor leagues, I thought there's supposed to be all these stipulations of your facilities have to be up here, your broadcasts have to be up to this standard. I don't know what the hell I've been watching some nights, watching Aberdeen and Bowie. It's like, what the Aberdeen ballpark itself, like, what are we actually doing? Was there anything? Zach would know better than me. This is a whole another podcast episode, I'm sure, not to keep it going, but I don't know. Maybe we are starting to see some advancements in some areas for these teams. That could be some positives. We'll go to the final question here too while we're at it. Another one from Mac the Fan. Sorry, I jumped the other one too. But you guys have mentioned that Frederick is going to be a better park for hitters than Aberdeen. Why is that?
So if you look at the park factors over a 3-year basis, which is usually the best way to measure them, in the final years that Frederick was in the old Carolina League, now the South Atlantic League, it was by most measures the first or second most hitter-friendly ballpark in the league. So without any changes to the dimensions coming, which I'm pretty sure there aren't, unless that new structure that is going up in right field somehow really changes the way the wind blows through the ballpark, which I don't think it will, it's probably going to be a really hitter-friendly ballpark. So you're going to be going from, I think, what's best described as a pitcher-leaning neutral ballpark in Aberdeen, and one that frustrated hitters for a variety of reasons, to a very hitter-friendly environment in Frederick. And the other is, I go back to conversations we had before the 2020 season was supposed to have started. When we were first starting this show, we were going through pitcher stats of the last few years of Frederick, and we kept seeing this trend where pitchers would be at Delmarva for a full year. They'd put up good numbers. They would go to Frederick the following year. They'd be there for a full season and put up solid numbers, but you would notice that their walk rate went up, their strikeout rate went down, and their home run to fly ball rate went way up. So you could see, not just in the park factors, but in some of the individual pitching numbers, that this was having an effect. I think the Orioles player development system is in a different place now. So hopefully we don't see that stark contrast in some of those areas that we saw from Delmarva to Frederick. The last time Frederick was in affiliated minor league ball. But I do think you're going to see it. You're probably going to see more instances of a pitcher who has an ERA in the mid to upper fours getting promoted to Chesapeake, and you're wondering why. And then you look and you realize, oh, well, his strikeout rate is up 2% from last year. His walk rate is down, and he has a 14.5% home run to fly ball rate. I just think you're going to see more of those things based on how Frederick played the last time the Keys were affiliated.
Yeah. Just we know Aberdeen somehow it tracks out as slightly pitcher friendly, even though we know from hitters themselves are just, you can just tell like the batting sight lines are not particularly great for at least certain people. And it's just a really hard ballpark to consistently hit in. And Frederick has been a bandbox in the past. And like Nick or Zach said, I don't think anything's changed in that regard. So yeah, expecting it to certainly not be as friendly to pitchers.
Yeah, I hit the nail on the head there. I believe if I remember looking at the right thing, Aberdeen had their home run park factor was like in the 70s over the last 3 years or so, which is like god awful. And Aberdeen back in 2019 pre-pandemic was, like Zach said, 1 or 2 in the league behind. I think it was Winston-Salem. So yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm just excited to have the Keys back as an Orioles field. And I think I saw earlier this week that they've even transitioned the website over. So all the Orioles prospects are now officially Frederick Keys members. That's cool.
Yep, and we're looking forward to seeing how all of that plays out in 2026. And that does it for this episode. Thank you, as always, for the great questions and way to send off our mailbags in 2025 with a great finale. Now, we will be back next week for a year in review, which might take a different look because I don't think we really want to talk about the 2025 season a whole lot more anymore. So we'll try to come with a little bit different approach between now and our next episode for how that's going to look. In the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Blue Sky. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to Patreon and sign up to become a member. You can join the $3, $5, or $10 levels and have access to our top 50 countdown. Bob, Nick, and I will be presenting the top 50 in the form of a daily countdown from Prospect 50 to Prospect number 1, beginning in early January. So you're going to make sure you don't miss that, as well as the exclusive content we will have for patrons throughout the regular season. And with the few days that we have here between this episode and Christmas, if you're looking for a last-minute gift for the Orioles fan in your life, consider a Patreon membership. You can do a monthly membership, custom month range, or get a yearly membership at a 15% discount and give the Orioles fan access to all of this bonus coverage that patrons enjoy. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.
Marriott Bonvoy is the official hotel partner of US Soccer. Join Marriott Bonvoy today to get closer to the game with exclusive perks, unforgettable experiences, and benefits that go beyond the pitch. Spring Hill Suites, part of Marriott Bonvoy, offers complimentary hot breakfast and spacious all-suite accommodations, perfect for the whole team, with room for up to 6 guests. Make your next getaway a win. Learn more at springhillsuites.marriott.com.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening. Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy Holiday.